Welcome back to our channel on this spectacular day. We are absolutely thrilled to bring you the most compelling and dramatic updates from the heart of Genoa City. The landscape of our favorite town is shifting rapidly, and we are here to guide you through every twisted path and emotional revelation. Let us dive directly into the intense narrative unfolding this week. The atmosphere inside Crimson Lights is thick with an almost suffocating blend of anticipation and unspoken dread as the doors swing open to reveal a familiar face that sends immediate shockwaves through the heart of Genoa City. Mariah Copeland has officially returned, stepping out of the sterile, heavily monitored environment of the mental health treatment facility and back into the chaotic, emotionally charged world she left behind. Her arrival is not merely a quiet homecoming, it is a seismic event that instantly alters the fragile equilibrium of everyone connected to her. Sharon Rosales, standing behind the counter, experiences a profound, overwhelming rush of maternal relief that is almost immediately eclipsed by a creeping, icy terror. Mariah's eyes, though clear, carry the heavy, unmistakable weight of immense psychological fragility and a desperate burning need for redemption. The young woman who once navigated the treacherous waters of Genoa City with sharp wit and cynical detachment has been replaced by someone dangerously vulnerable, someone who is desperately searching for proof that salvation is possible for even the most broken souls. This desperate search for redemption quickly manifests in the most terrifying way imaginable, as Mariah finds herself inexplicably drawn into the toxic, manipulative orbit of Matt Clark. The very mention of Matt's name is enough to send a collective shudder down the spines of the Newman family, a name synonymous with relentless psychological torture and unforgivable cruelty. Yet, Mariah, operating under a profound cognitive dissonance, refuses to see the monster that everyone else recognizes so clearly. She is captivated by what she perceives as a miraculous transformation, entirely taken in by Matt's newly adopted persona of an eccentric, remorseful, and disarmingly humorous man. This facade, carefully constructed by a master manipulator, is perfectly designed to exploit Mariah's current psychological state. She looks at Matt and does not see a dangerous predator. Instead, she sees a reflection of her own desperate hope that a dark past does not dictate a doomed future. The tension escalates to a boiling point within the walls of the coffeehouse as Mariah adamantly defends Matt against the fierce, desperate warnings of her family. Noah Newman, entirely consumed by a bitter, dark jealousy and an agonizing exhaustion from Matt's constant interference in his relationship with Sienna Bacall, is preparing to flee to Los Angeles just to escape the man's suffocating shadow. Noah vehemently rejects Mariah's naive assertions, his voice thick with the trauma of past betrayals, insisting that a sociopath like Matt is fundamentally incapable of genuine change. But Mariah remains stubbornly, dangerously defiant. She projects her own intense need for absolution onto Matt, arguing with a terrifying conviction that people can evolve, that they can shed their darkest impulses and emerge into the light. Every word she speaks in Matt's defense drives a stake deeper into Sharon's heart, as the terrified mother realizes her daughter is willingly walking blindfolded into a psychological slaughterhouse. Sharon's panic is not born of mere overprotection, it is rooted in a deep, historical understanding of the absolute devastation Matt Clark is capable of inflicting. She watches in silent, paralyzing horror as Mariah's dangerous empathy begins to isolate her from the very support system she desperately needs to survive her recovery. Matt, observing this familial fracture from the shadows, recognizes the perfect opportunity to sink his claws deeper into Mariah's fragile psyche. He weaponizes his eccentric humor, using it as a smokescreen to disarm her lingering defenses, slowly positioning himself as the only person in Genoa City who truly understands the complexity of being a misunderstood outcast. Mariah's insistence on seeing the good in a certified monster creates a terrifying vulnerability, a fatal flaw that threatens to undo all the grueling progress she made during her time in the treatment facility. While Mariah is unwittingly stepping into a masterclass of psychological manipulation, another catastrophic crisis is unfolding across town, one that is deeply, inextricably linked to Mariah's own dark history. Devon Hamilton, once a pillar of stability and quiet strength, is currently trapped in a catastrophic downward spiral, completely consumed by an uncontrollable, violent rage and a suffocating paranoia. The grand, cavernous halls of the Hamilton mansion have transformed into a self-imposed prison, echoing with the destructive consequences of his recent actions. Devon has systematically alienated everyone who cares about him, launching brutal, humiliating public attacks against his wife, Abby Newman, and her innocent confidant, Daniel Romalotti. His mind has become a battlefield of irrational jealousy and profound insecurity, driving him to the absolute brink of total self-destruction. To understand the sheer magnitude of Devon's current psychological collapse, one must trace the roots of his trauma back to the defining nightmare of his life, the harrowing kidnapping of baby Dominic. This unimaginable violation of safety and trust, perpetrated by none other than Mariah Copeland during a severe mental health crisis of her own, fundamentally shattered Devon's sense of security. The trauma of having his child stolen from his arms planted a dark, insidious seed of paranoia deep within his subconscious. Even though the physical danger passed, the emotional scars never truly healed. They merely festered beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect storm of stress and insecurity to rip them open once again. Now, under the immense pressure of corporate warfare and marital strife, that dormant trauma has erupted into a blinding, destructive rage. Devon's inability to control his anger is not merely a character flaw, it is a desperate, violent manifestation of a man who feels completely powerless to protect his own life and legacy. Every perceived slight, every innocent interaction between Abby and Daniel is magnified through the distorted lens of his unresolved trauma, triggering a fight-or-flight response that invariably ends in emotional bloodshed. He is drowning in a sea of his own making, pushing away the very people who could offer him a lifeline. The tragic irony is that Devon's desperate attempts to assert control over his environment are precisely what is causing his world to crumble into dust. He is a man utterly lost in the dark, desperately in need of an intervention before he crosses a line from which he can never, ever return. It is within this explosive context that Mariah's return to Genoa City takes on a profound, almost cosmic significance. The timing of her release from the mental health facility aligns perfectly with the absolute zenith of Devon's emotional crisis. Mariah, now armed with a brutal, clear-eyed understanding of her own psychological fragility, recognizes the terrifying parallels between her past actions and Devon's current descent into madness. She carries the heavy, suffocating burden of knowing that she is the original architect of the trauma that is currently tearing Devon's life apart. The realization that her past sins are actively fueling the destruction of a man she once deeply respected ignites a desperate, burning need to make amends, to somehow heal the catastrophic damage she set in motion all those months ago. The anticipation of a confrontation between Mariah and Devon is fraught with an almost unbearable tension. It is a deeply complex psychological dynamic, the former kidnapper stepping into the den of the father she traumatized, not to ask for forgiveness, but to offer a lifeline. Mariah understands that she is perhaps the only person in Genoa City who can truly comprehend the suffocating darkness that currently envelops Devon. She knows what it feels like to lose complete control of one's mind, to be driven by impulses that defy all logic and reason, and to watch in horror as those actions destroy the lives of the people you love. She hopes that by laying her own brokenness bare, she can pierce through Devon's impenetrable armor of rage and reach the terrified, wounded man trapped underneath. As Mariah prepares to cross the threshold of the Hamilton mansion, she is forced to confront the terrifying possibility that her presence might be the very spark that ignites the final, fatal explosion. Devon's emotional state is incredibly volatile, a powder keg of unresolved resentment and pain. The sight of the woman who stole his child could easily trigger a catastrophic relapse into violence, pushing him entirely over the edge. Yet, Mariah is driven by a profound, unwavering conviction that this is a necessary risk. She must attempt to guide Devon out of the labyrinth of his own mind, to help him process the deep-seated anger that is poisoning his existence. It is a desperate gamble, a high-stakes emotional intervention that carries the potential for either profound healing or absolute devastation. The emotional weight of their impending interaction is staggering. Devon, isolated in his silent mansion, is battling a relentless internal war. Part of him craves the righteous indignation, the familiar, intoxicating heat of his own fury, which acts as a shield against the paralyzing fear of vulnerability. But another, deeper part of him is entirely exhausted. He is tired of fighting, tired of the constant suspicion, and desperately tired of being alone. If Mariah can somehow navigate the minefield of his trauma, if she can speak to that exhausted, wounded part of his soul, there is a fragile, fleeting hope that Devon might finally open up. He might finally allow himself to release the toxic burden he has carried since the day Dominic was taken, paving the way for a grueling but necessary journey toward true peace. However, the narrative is infinitely complicated by Mariah's own compromised psychological state. She is attempting to act as a savior for Devon, while simultaneously walking directly into the jaws of a predator. Her dangerous, delusional empathy for Matt Clark threatens to undermine her entirely. As she prepares to counsel Devon on facing his demons and accepting harsh truths, she is actively denying the monstrous reality of the man she is defending to her family. This profound hypocrisy, this blinding cognitive dissonance, creates a highly unstable foundation for her intervention. How can she successfully guide Devon out of his darkness when she is willingly inviting a known sociopath into her own light? The juxtaposition of her roles as a healer for Devon and a willing victim for Matt Clark paints a portrait of a woman teetering dangerously on the edge of a precipice. Matt Clark, ever the opportunistic predator, is acutely aware of Mariah's divided focus. He recognizes that her impending emotional confrontation with Devon will leave her completely drained, highly vulnerable, and desperate for the twisted validation he so expertly provides. He waits patiently in the periphery, his eccentric, humorous facade perfectly maintained, ready to sweep in the moment Mariah's strength falters. The danger is not merely that Mariah might fail to save Devon, it is that the emotional toll of the attempt will strip away her remaining defenses, leaving her entirely at Matt's mercy. Sharon's paralyzing dread is entirely justified, as she watches a catastrophic domino effect being set into motion, entirely powerless to stop the impending collision of these deeply traumatized souls. The atmosphere in Genoa City grows heavier by the hour, suffocating under the weight of these intertwined destinies. The walls of the Hamilton mansion seem to close in as Devon paces the floors, a caged animal consumed by his own unresolved agony. Across town, Mariah steels herself for the most difficult conversation of her life, carrying the immense guilt of her past and the dangerous delusions of her present. Every step she takes toward Devon is a step deeper into a psychological minefield. The stakes have never been higher, as the future of multiple families hangs precariously in the balance. The potential for a miraculous, healing breakthrough is matched only by the terrifying probability of a complete, irreversible breakdown. As the heavy oak doors of the Hamilton mansion slowly creak open, revealing the dark, silent interior where Devon waits in his self-imposed exile, a chilling realization sets in. Mariah is stepping into the lion's den, armed only with her fragile empathy and a desperate hope for redemption. But, unknown to her, the invisible, toxic shadow of Matt Clark follows closely behind, a silent specter waiting to exploit the inevitable emotional wreckage. The stage is set for a confrontation that will shatter the very foundations of Genoa City, leaving us to wonder if Mariah's desperate mission to save a broken man will ultimately be the catalyst that seals her own devastating fate.